Lower. You have to make that horse stand slower. Barks out Sifu to the students all the time, and for that matter, he does that with all the stances. But the question is, why does he bark these things out? Is it because he enjoys putting us through pain and muscle fatigue? Besides, you and I would not use stances in a fight, nor would we stand that low in a fight either. So the question is, why does Sifu make us do these things? I caught up with Sifu recently, and asked him why.
Hello student Twimey, it's good to see you.
Ni hao Sifu Meadows. I have several questions I would like to ask you today, would that be alright?
Sure student Twimey. What is your first question?
Sifu, you're always telling us to have lower stances, why is that?
Well student Twimey, it is simple to understand, however, it is hard at first to do because you have to learn your body's balance, gain leg strength. And at the same time you are becoming more flexible by holding those stances. Plus there are a lot of students who need that extra push to practice their stances in class. Because for one reason or another they don't do it at home. Practicing in class also gives me a chance to make any corrections with the feet, hands and arm positions.
Sifu, don't we get enough stretching during exercise to not have to work on flexibility while working our forms?
No. The more you train your stances the more flexible you become, which helps you with your kicks, and can actually help you from getting a pulled muscle. If you ever had to step deep, or kick, in a real-life self-defense situation. Remember, in that real-life self-defense situation you won't have time to say, "Hold on a minute, I have to stretch before you try to mug me." And therefore you must be ready to move at a moment's notice. This is also where leg strength comes into play. It takes leg strength to get low and hold yourself up in those stances. Keep this in mind as well. If you can move fast when low, having that leg strength, flexibility and balance, how much faster will you do when you adjust your footwork for actual combat? Also keep in mind that when you are using your stances in a fight, you will be using them as quick little moments in time, in the confrontation and not standing in a stance the whole time. Doing so would be silly. Remember, there are some stances that are transitional stances to help you get into a solid stance. The twisted horse for throwing a hook kick or roundhouse kick, or doing a 7-star stance. Hooking it behind the attacker's ankle just before stepping into a horse stance, knocking them to the ground. Or using that same stance as part of a sweep, are just a few examples of how the stances are used.
I see Sifu, that makes sense. But I train with weights outside of the Kwun, so I shouldn't have to do any holding of stances, right?
Student Twimey, training with weights is a good thing, and I have nothing against that. I would like to add that it is important to also train your body with your forms and techniques as well. Weights will give you the overall strength, but it will not give you the body movement for doing the techniques in your material. While lifting weights, most of the time you are sitting, or standing, in one spot. When doing forms and techniques, you are moving and using your balance. So, if you are doing your material with low stances, you are also getting that weight training.
Sifu, is there any other reason we should be practicing our stances?
Yes. Just like we talked about the stances being a transitional stances, you should also know what the energy of the stance is doing when you practice your stances. You need to know if the energy of the stance is a pulling, or receiving, or putting energy into, or neutral. Once you understand that, it makes understanding your forms and techniques a lot easier.
Speaking of easier, I have heard you also say that the strength in the techniques should come from your stances. Why is that, Sifu?
Well, the stances help you do the techniques by providing the energy that we talked about in your last question. For example, if someone does a cross wrist grab like number 9, and you apply a chin knot technique and you just use your hands and arms to do the technique, you are muscling the technique, and whoever is the stronger, will win in that contest. However, if you employ your stances, you get hand and arm strength, plus the body weight, into the technique from your correct stance. If you use the wrong stance in the above technique, you will get a different result. Try that technique with the cat stance, rather than a kneeling or bow stance. Also, don't forget about the peanut butter jar theory.
Sifu, could you remind everyone about the peanut butter jar theory?
Sure. The peanut butter jar theory goes a little something like this. I want you to think back in the day, when peanut butter jars had metal lids on them. Now when you went to open it, you couldn't open the jar holding it with your arms outstretched. No. You had to hold the jar end close to your body to open it. Okay, so you can open it with your arms out in front of you, if you banged the lid with the butter knife first. Which would be just like doing the dingers in your martial art techniques, just before doing the technique. Let's go back to the cross wrist grab number 9 from above. If you try to do the technique with your arms held out in front of you, your attacker can escape by rolling his elbow to do an upwards elbow strike to your chin. However, if you apply the peanut butter theory, you would do the technique with your arms in close, to prevent the attacker from rolling their elbow to strike you. In fact, if they try to roll their elbow, doing so would increase their pain.
So, when you combine both the stances and the peanut butter jar theory into your martial skills, it makes defending yourself and others easier. Thank you, Sifu Meadows, for this interesting look at why you are always telling us to lower our stances.
You are welcome, student Twimey. It has been a pleasure talking with you today.
Likewise, Sifu.
And for all you students out there, train hard and practice your stances. Lower. You have to make your stances lower. Saijin, student Twimey.
Saijin, Sifu Meadows. Well, I'm student Wymie too. Until next time, when we have another Kwoon talk with Sifu about why it's important to practice your forms 1000 times.